I'm going to be talking about some plants that I struggle with. Hey friends, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me for another planty video. Thank you for finding me on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about some plants that I struggle with, that do not do well in my care, but that I still love and that I haven't given up hope on. Usually when plants are not behaving themselves or don't seem to like my house, I give them away as soon as possible. But there's some plants that I just refuse to give up on because they're so cool and yet they're struggling and might die. But here we are. Anyways, if you're into that, stay tuned. Let's get into it. So I have the pile of plants that we're going to talk about beside me, but I want to explain sort of the environment that these plants are in. I do not run a humidifier in my house. I live in BC, Canada, so the air is somewhat humid. It's usually around 50%, and I know that that is why some of these plants are struggling. So I know that. I am doing everything I can to sort of remedy that. Because of that, I on purpose do not buy plants that I know are gonna really struggle in low humidity, but sometimes I just find myself with these plants and I do my best. But like I said, sometimes I will just give them away or sell them or whatever if it's a plant that I just know is not gonna recover. But these are plants that I just, for whatever reason, I will explain the reasons, but for whatever reason I can't give away and I just really want them to thrive and I have hope for them. So first of all, this one is in two pieces. This is my Philodendron Brandy, Philodendron Brantianum. Absolutely gorgeous leaves, but so tiny. When I've looked into this plant, it generally has bigger leaves, like a pothos almost. But for whatever reason, mine has teeny tiny leaves and they're still gorgeous. I have chopped it off of the mama plant. This is the mama plant. Often when you chop a plant, it will sort of spark extra growth and sometimes make the plant even stronger. We can see on the mama plant, there is some growth coming in like right there and right at the base. I don't know if you can see that. There is a little shoot coming out. So it's doing something. It's not dead. And this one, there was a little, oh, there is a new leaf coming in. We'll see if it's any bigger. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with this plant because philodendrons generally do really, really well in my house. This is a philodendron. I give it full light. It is under a grow light. And so sometimes I'm thinking maybe it should have less light, but I've also tried having it further away from the grow light and then it just doesn't grow at all. So I'm not sure. If you have any tips, please let me know. That was another reason I'm kind of making this video, is that maybe people will watch it and give me tips and then all these plants will thrive. So if you're growing this plant successfully, please let me know. I know that it does like to climb, but really there's nothing here that, you know, it doesn't need to climb yet. I will give it something to climb once it is big enough. The roots are good. It's not, you know, it's not rotten. There's no pests. I don't know what the issue is, except maybe just this specific plant has poor genetics. Or maybe it just doesn't like me. And the reason I haven't gotten rid of this plant, well, I tried to sell this plant, no one wanted it. But the reason I don't just give up on this plant is the leaves are absolutely beautiful. If you've ever seen a photo of this plant, they're, you know, about the size of a pothos leaf and they're silver, like they're absolutely gorgeous. And I also don't give up hope because it is pushing out new growth. It's constantly pushing out something, but then often if it's a new leaf, it will kind of like die or rot off. It's constantly doing something. So that's why I also don't want to give up hope, is I feel like it wants to live. It wants to do something. I just need to figure out how to help it. Anyway, that's my first plant. Next up, it is in a bag for a reason. This is my, there's actually two plants in here, but one of them is fine. One is just a propagation. So this is my, the plant I'm gonna talk about is my Hoya Carry Eye, variegated Hoya Carry Eye. And so I'm keeping it in this Ziploc bag to hopefully increase the humidity for it, because obviously Hoyas love humidity. And here she is. She's a gorgeous plant, but just whenever she starts a new leaf, the leaf rots off. And so right here, There is 1 or 2 new leaves coming in, but they stay like that for so long. And then I have had leaves that get basically to this size, never this huge size, but a smaller size, and then they just fall off. And I don't know what it is. So the Ziploc bag is a new strategy. Well, there is another little new leaf coming out too. I think that's a leaf. So the Ziploc bag is a new strategy to increase the humidity in hopes that that will just help it thrive. I've seen some people put this plant in Ziploc bags and that seems to help. I've tried, you know, giving it tons of fertilizer. Didn't really do anything. I've given it a snip because that has helped my other Hoyas, and that is where I snipped, where that new growth is coming out, that is where I snipped, so that did help, but nothing drastic, no drastic improvements. And this is actually 2 plants. I had 2 fuller plants and they lost so many leaves that I decided to combine them into 1 pot because they were looking fairly pathetic. And I really want this plant to thrive. The reason I haven't given up on this plant is because obviously it's gorgeous. This honestly was a wish list plant for me for so long. And then when I got it, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. I would love to have the full green Hoya Carry Eye as well, but I've just never really seen one in my budget or where I live. I love this plant. I love the heart-shaped leaves, but honestly, it is a struggle. It is a struggle. So if you are growing this plant successfully, please let me know what you're doing. Do you give it bright light? I give it bright light, and it is now in a very, very humid environment in its beautiful Ziploc bag. So please let me know if there's any secrets or if it's just super, super slow growing, which is okay. If that is the case, I will just wait for it. It is super cute as it is. Obviously not as cute living in a Ziploc bag, but if that's what she needs, I will do that. That's okay. I'll just show you what else I'm growing in the Ziploc bag while I have it open. This is some Hoya Kertissi cuttings that I took from my mama plant. I have a fairly big mama plant and I cut those off to promote growth. As I said, I've been doing with my Hoyas. They rooted up so quickly, and so I've got them in soil, and there's actually, oh yeah, there's roots coming out the bottom now. So that's the difference. I can grow Hoyas. I do have Hoyas that are thriving in my care. It is not that I just kill Hoyas, because this guy is super happy, but for whatever reason, that one is just struggling. Next plant is also in 2 pieces. This is my Philodendron Micans. Now, I got this as a cutting originally, and it was just 1 cutting, and so I'll put that down. What happened is, so this was the original cutting, is this guy. And so it grew really, 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 really long and looked beautiful, and I had it up on a trellis. But after a while, the bottom part of the stem, so here, dropped tons of leaves, and then it was on this trellis, and because it was dropping leaves, it just sort of looked ugly. It looked ugly. So I cut it up in the hopes that these will root and I will plant them back in here and I'll have a fairly full pot. Now this is another random Micans cutting that I got from someone else that I rooted and put in here. As you can see, the leaves are super, super tiny. And it took forever to root, and it is taking forever to do anything. It's been like, I've had that cutting for like a year. So the mama plant, since I snipped it, now there is new growth coming out. So that gives me hope. There are obviously leaves that are coming out from the nodes. Those nodes had dropped their leaves in the past. And then these cuttings, they've been rooting, I would say, for a couple months. I should write down when I put things in water, but I don't. They haven't been rooting at all, like nothing. There is no signs of roots. There is a little leaf popping out there, which is exciting. But then also these cuttings drop some leaves, which is not the end of the world. Obviously they're, you know, they don't have any roots to support them, so it makes sense that they would be struggling a little bit. But why? It was growing so well before I snipped it. And now it's struggling, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm hoping that I didn't kill the plant. I'm hoping there is a new leaf coming out at the end as well. So that's exciting. But Philodendron Micans is just such a beautiful plant, and it was thriving for so long, and then all of a sudden dropping leaves, looking ugly. And I snipped it to help it, and now I feel like I might have done more harm than good. So I don't know. I have this in medium light. This is in medium light. This is in medium light as well, which was working before it started dropping leaves back when it was on the trellis. And I just don't know what happened. I've checked for pests. There is absolutely no pests. There is, you know, I was fertilizing it a little bit, but not too much. I don't know what happened. And it makes me sad because it was doing so well for so long and was absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorite plants. It looked so beautiful on the trellis in the beginning. Like when it was still nice and full, it was absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorite plants. And now here we are with these ugly little, these ugly things. And I don't know what went wrong. If maybe just the plant was done. But also this other cutting is so slow growing. So I don't know. Basically don't know. But I will not give up hope on this. This would have to actually rot and turn to like a black piece of rotten material for me to throw it out, because I love this plant. I love other people's plants. Other people have these like cascading micans, and that is my goal for this plant, but it might take me several years. Anyway, if you have any tips for Philodendron Micans, let me know. All right, now the last plant lives in my beautiful terrarium, and it is doing okay in there. But the reason that it is in this terrarium is because it has failed so badly with me outside of the terrarium. Now, I'm talking about Begonia maculata. Now, where is it? There it is in the terrarium, doing pretty well. But I will say that cutting, that little tiny thing that is in there, used to be a huge plant like this big with tons of new growth, and it was thriving. And then winter hit. I was still keeping it warm. I was keeping it fairly humid, dropped all of its leaves and looked like it was a twig. It was terrible. So I cut that up and put it in a jar, and then it started growing. So I think this plant just basically needs tons of humidity is what I'm learning. Eventually it's gonna outgrow this terrarium, and then I guess I will just put it in another terrarium. But I guess, so it's, right now I would not say it's struggling, like it's alive, but the fact that that plant was, you know, this tall with tons and tons of growth on it, and now is that big, I would say is a struggle. So this one, I'm not giving up hope. I think I just, in my house where I don't have a humidifier, I think I do just need to grow it in a terrarium for the rest of its life. But I will just, I'm including this one because if you are thinking you're gonna have a huge bushy Begonia maculata, like maybe you've seen a photo and you are going to do that, unless you have really, really high humidity, I personally don't think that is possible. I think this is a plant that requires fairly high humidity to look good. So unless you want to put it in a terrarium, might not be the plant for you. And that is something I learned, because when I looked online, everyone said like, oh, it's so easy to grow. It just needs lots of light. No, it needs tons and tons of humidity. And my house is about 50 or 60% humidity, and it still struggles if it's not in like an enclosed dome, which is fine. I'm enjoying growing it in an enclosed dome. It was in a pickle jar, candy jar before, and I enjoyed growing it in its candy jar. That's fine. But I struggled to grow it just in regular conditions, even though the internet said that that was possible. So don't trust the internet. So those are my struggle plants. There are many other plants that I struggle with, calatheas being one of them. I have a huge calathea behind me, and for some reason, that one is doing well, but every single other calathea I've ever had died. So I struggle with other plants, but I've just learned to either not buy them or give them away once they start to struggle. I hate when plants die in my care. I feel so bad, but it happens. Anyone with plants has plants that look like this. I guarantee it. Or they just throw them out, and that's okay too. If that's what you gotta do, you just gotta compost them for your mental health, that's okay too. But I would say that anyone that has a beautiful plant collection also has this type of situation. Yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.